Well, it's tomato picking season here in Tasmania. The outdoor crop is now into full swing, and this morning I've been out harvesting a number of varieties that I have growing this year. Now what I thought I'd do today is give you a bit of review of the tomato varieties that I'm growing this year, a little bit of a comparison between them. I have 6 different varieties that I'm growing, and this is an example of them all here. So what we have is we have purple Cherokee here, which is quite distinctive because of the green showing on it. We have Roma, which is a well-known shape. We have Legend over here, which I've grown both in the greenhouse and outdoors. This one here is the LJ, and I'll give you a little bit more info on that a little bit later. Cindel, we've got a couple of those here, and Tommy Toe. Now, this is of course a fairly well-known cherry tomato. Now, I've grown this range because I wanted to really get a bit of a comparison between different tomato varieties, which ones suited us best and in what circumstance. Now, of course, there's heaps and heaps of other tomato varieties and some more that I'll probably experiment with in other seasons. In other past seasons, I've played around with different ones as well. Now, we use tomatoes both for just table eating, salads, sandwiches, that type of thing, but also for processing. A big part of that processing goes to making tomato sauce. Some of it also goes just for bottling. So I'm looking for probably a later crop, which is more for processing and gives better qualities in that way. An early crop and continuing through the season that is for just table eating. Now, I'll begin with the Legend. This is the first year that I've grown the Legend, and I'm reasonably impressed with it. It is an indeterminate tomato, has a really good crop, but it has a couple of characteristics which are just got to be mindful of. It is obviously being bred not only for good production, but also for transport, marketing and that type of thing, because it has a fairly thick skin. This one's just been picked today, and when it's like this and it's just a little bit off the full red, it's not ideal for eating. It's better if you keep it for probably another week, but it's always, when you eat it, going to have a fairly tough skin, but it will keep really well. It won't go off, it will retain its shape and actually eat nicely a week later and potentially more. Now this one here is one that I have kept for that amount of time, and we'll cut that one in half. Now you can see this particular one is quite fleshy. It isn't always that fleshy. And in terms of flavour, really quite a nice tomato to eat. It's a really nice tomato in a sandwich, in a salad. It produced really well from early in the season and has produced quite a lot from the greenhouse. Now the outdoor crop has been slower to come in. It has a lot of fruits on the vine still that hasn't ripened. Our season this year is cooling early. It's going to be interesting to see how that actually goes, whether it ripens, how the production is. But I'm really happy with the Legend. I probably will continue to grow that, particularly as a greenhouse plant. I think it might be a little bit better in there than outdoors. Now, to contrast it, we'll go over to the Cindel, which is one that I grew indoors and also outdoors. These particular ones come from the outdoor crop, and it's really a contrast to the Legend because it's a determinate tomato, and in terms of picking, it is one that doesn't keep well. I find it tends to go soft very quickly. It can have a better size than the Legend. The Legend is a bit of a smaller tomato. The Cindel will give a decent size, and a cross section, again, a nice fleshy tomato, but as I said, the issue with it is that it will go soft quite quickly. A thinner skin, really nice flavour. I probably actually prefer the Cindel flavour a little bit over the Legend. But the downside for me with the Cindel is that it just doesn't keep. It needs to be eaten basically when you pick it. And that's the real contrast to the Legend. The Legend, you often think, oh, I'll pick it, but it's really too firm at that stage. You need to keep it longer. The Cindel, you pick it, eat it that day is the ideal. I'm assuming, of course, that you're actually picking them right like I do. If you pick them a bit immature, of course, then they will keep a little bit longer. So those are the two that I grew in the greenhouse and outdoors, and they're a comparative tomato, one being indeterminate, the other determinate, but a similar type of tomato in the situation you'd grow them. Both really table tomatoes, but can be used, of course, in any things processing just as well. Now, let's jump to the purple Cherokee. It's not a tomato that I have grown previously. Recommended by a viewer, and thank you for the recommendation. It's produced fairly well. I've only grown it outdoors. The only downside is, and it produces quite a lot of large tomatoes, I should say, but the downside is that the larger tomatoes often tend to split, sometimes worse than this. And when they split like this at the top, they are prone to fungal problems coming in, and they don't keep very well. A different tomato in terms of appearance. A beautiful fleshy tomato again, and nice colour. And that is one of the things that, even though if you're used to picking red tomatoes, you think this green means it's not ripe, but it is. Flavour wise, quite a different flavour. Nice, but quite noticeably different to the others. Take another taste to really... Not as strong in the tomatoey flavour as certainly the Cindel, but a milder flavoured tomato. So if you're looking for a strong tomato flavour, I wouldn't go for it. I'm not 100% certain whether it will be one that I grow again. I think in terms of flavour, in a large tomato, I preferred the Mortgage Lifter, which I have grown in previous years. But a nice tomato, still the same. Certainly worth the try. Now, of course, most people are familiar with the Tommy Toe as a cherry tomato, and look, this is one we like in salads, and just as a snack, to eat that, it's really, really tasty. I think, it's a very seedy tomato, as most cherry tomatoes are. But in flavour, it's really good. I think it's probably going to be the winner in terms of strength of flavour. And this is, I think, second or third year that I've grown Tommy Toes, and I think I will continue to grow some Tommy Toe plants. This year I grew them outdoors, and I'm a little bit happier with them outdoors than they were in the greenhouse. The cropping is a little bit later, but not that much, and the plants are looking a bit healthier. And in terms of cherry tomatoes, I prefer it over some of the smaller ones because I like a larger cherry tomato. It's just better for picking and handling. I probably wouldn't put this in, or choose to put this into a sauce, because it's very seedy, and you generally don't want a seedy tomato in a sauce. You want more flesh. But just for normal eating and snacking, it's a great tomato. Now, the unusual one here is the LJ, as I'm calling it. This was given to me as seed from someone I knew locally, bred by a naturopath who lived here locally by the name of Leicester Jones. He was also well known in organic gardening circles, was I think one of the founding members of the Organic Gardening Farming Society here in Tasmania. Now it comes in a variety of shapes, everything from this larger one here to this more uniform smaller one. Often has a bit of green or yellow blush in it. The shape of it shows an ox heart origin to me. The actual crop on it is really, really good, and today I've picked lots and lots from it. They hold fairly well. I think this one has probably been picked a week ago and is still in good condition. So in terms of production, in terms of keeping, it's a really good tomato. Let's cut it, have a look. This one is a little less fleshy. Now I've seen some a bit more filled out than this one. It's got a little space in there. Now flavour is the test. Now the skin is fairly soft, even though it keeps fairly well, the skin is fairly soft. Flavour to me is where it is let down. It really doesn't have the tomatoey flavour there much at all. It is a little bit bland in flavour to me. And really I've tasted quite a few of them now and I find them a little bit watery and mild in their flavour. That's the big disappointment in it. In terms of its other characteristics, I would really like it and it'd be great to grow and to continue to grow, but the flavour is a bit poor. So that means how it would go in terms of sauce. I mean, I will make some sauce from it this year and see, but it probably wouldn't produce the tastiest of sauces. And also in bottling, I think you need a bit more flavour. So last of all is the tomato that I traditionally grow for processing, and that's a Roma. Now this is a determinate Roma. I kept the seed myself the last year. I have grown indeterminate Romas in previous years and they are great, but the determinate plant is a little bit easier to handle, and this is a good tomato in terms of sauce making. Pretty traditional, not a lot of seeds in these, a fair bit of flesh. Now, to me, I don't particularly like them as a table tomato, but they're still a reasonable flavour. You could eat them as a table tomato, but a better flavour than the LJ, so still a better choice in terms of sauce, I think. I find them a really easy one in terms of processing because they keep quite well. So you can pick and store them up till they're really nice and ripe and they generally won't go off. And then all you really have to do is take that stem off, cut them in half, throw them in the pot. Nice clean skin tomato. So at this point, the Roma is holding its place as the processing tomato for me. I haven't yet tried the Amish paste tomato, and that's something I really need to do next year and compare it. The ones that I will probably continue to grow out of this are the Romas, as I said, the Tommy Toes, the Legend, maybe the Cindel, but it's a little bit of a toss-up whether, despite the size that it has, that it will produce a nice sized tomato, I think the Legend may be more useful because of its keeping characteristics, that it doesn't go mushy like the Cindel does. And I probably will continue to grow a large tomato, but I don't generally grow a lot of those. I probably will go back to the mortgage lifter at this stage, but explore others from year to year. So anyway, that's a little bit of a review of what I've grown this year and their characteristics. Hopefully that was of some interest to you, some use. and all the best with your tomato crop.